the violent streets of Harlem, a rap rivalry, and a gruesome murder. This chain of events would force Notti Osama to write a somber tribute to his youngest brother and collaborator, Notti Osama. The tragic stabbing of the young rapper would change everything for the Reyes family, who has earned itself a name for notorious rap bars and gang violence. Notti was only 14 when the terrifying violence of drill rap took his life. The promising artist had recently found his breakthrough moment, but drill vengeance proved itself to be lethal once again. This is the story of the rise and demise of Notti Osama. A promising rapper is born in Harlem. Today, Notti Osama rules the streets of New York City. At the mere age of 17, the artist, whose real name is David Deshaun Reyes, is one of the biggest acts of drill rap in the Big Apple, and he had just begun. The moniker Osama means more than just rap in the streets of the city. Gone are the days when drill artists from Harlem would throw their bars in underground clubs and spots that were barred from public attention. As it stands today, artists like Notti Osama are making major shouts in the mainstream. From YouTube to Spotify, they are racking millions of streams for telling their life stories that are laced with gun and street violence. But before Notti Osama became the quintessential drill rapper, as we know today, it was actually his younger brother who was destined to take the crown. In fact, David himself was inspired to make music by his then 13-year-old brother, who went by the rap name of Notti Osama. It was the year 2021 when one of the youngest rappers on the streets of New York City had taken the mic to rap his heart out. Growing up, Notti had a very close and familiar relationship with the genre, which was mostly inspired by his Harlem upbringing and the violence he was exposed to at a young age. However, before Notti Osama's career could take off, Notti passed away in a tragic shootout that would change the scene of New York's drill music scene forever. The story of Notti Osama, who was born Ethan Reyes, starts with the career apex of his older brother, J-Star Bala. The young rapper had 5 other brothers, but it was Bala who would define the trajectory of Notti's life. J-Star had already made strides in the world of drill. He wouldn't get the mainstream attention that Didi and Notti would get, but the rapper knew the ropes of the genre and the danger it brought to one's life. And well, this is what a young Ethan wanted to pursue. Looking at his younger brother's sheer commitment to music at such a raw age would later inspire Didi to pursue rap as well. Notti Osama was born on January 17, 2008 in Harlem, New York. From a very young age, the musician/rapper was exposed to one of the most violent vicinities in America. While the crime rate has historically subsided, Harlem remains a center of gang warfare in New York, where hearing gunshots is part of one's coming-of-age experience. Notti's life wasn't different either. Despite being extremely young, he had understood that the life of a young African-American boy was going to be intersected with youth-led street violence that had skyrocketed over the years. Like other underprivileged urban centers in America, Harlem has had its fair share of vengeance among the youth who often take their fight into the streets. And when they don't, they frequently pen down their feelings in rap songs that encapsulate their turbulent upbringing in the violent hoods. Ethan Reyes' life was no different. This is why he picked up the pen to write rap at an age when most teenagers are still grappling with the mundane tangents of life, such as school homework. Notti's not-so-humble beginnings. Hailing from a musical family, Ethan learned that the most cathartic medium to express himself was music. That is why he was only 12 years old when he began to write his own rap. For the young man, music was the perfect escape. Plus, he had grown up watching and hearing A$AP Rocky, another Harlem rapper who had made it big in American popular culture. Just like Rocky, Notti had also hoped to quickly launch his career with a rapping group, but found solace in writing his music and putting it out as it deemed fit. After all, that's exactly what his idol had done too. Despite being only 12 years old, Ethan was taking his musical career very seriously. He had understood that his brother's rap, which had already found its way into New York's drill scene, was antagonizing. So, even as a child who had just kick-started his career, he had earned some enemies. But the young rapper was largely focusing on translating his Harlem life into music, in the hopes of making it big, just like his hero, A$AP Rocky. The dream would be cut short in July 2022, but then, the 14-year-old rapper had done well for himself. Ethan was only 12 years old when he decided to find his rap persona. His moniker in the streets of Harlem came to be Osama, which was a direct reference to the renowned Al-Qaeda terrorist, Osama bin Laden. Well, the teenager's inspiration would have gotten him into a firestorm typically, but Notti was coming from a drill scene. His purpose in embodying the terrorist's name in his rap moniker was to signify his rap villain era. Right off the bat, the teenager had started to shoot lyrical shots at his rivals, who were often twice his age. Eventually, Ethan settled on the rap persona of Notti Osama, which is a signifier for a Notti Osama, an alter ego that deviates away from the typical norms and respectability to show rivals an impolite way out. 2 years later, when the rapper's name in the underground arena was solidified, he got face tattoos saying Demon and Osama. Notti Osama's rap was visceral and groundbreaking. A kid who had grown up with protective older siblings had stepped out of a turbulent neighborhood with raw, explicit lyrics about what it was like to grow up in Harlem. His lyricism and flow had surpassed some of the biggest names in the underground drill scenes from the get-go. So, it wasn't surprising that Notti's career had taken off when he was barely 13. At the same time, the teenager had earned his rightful notoriety of not going easy on his rivals, a stylistic choice that had earned him an array of rivals. And well, that doesn't take away from the fact that Notti Osama's career was thriving. The young rapper's breakout track was Whip Him, which was released on YouTube. Notti was emerging from the shadows of his successful rapper brothers. So, he was inclined to make a statement of his own. And well, the music video for Whip Him did more damage on his enemies, who he often cited as ops, more than he ever expected. The underground, as well as the mainstream drill scene, had taken notice of Notti. Within the few days of Whip Him's release, rap and hip-hop blogs were writing about the newest, freshest, and youngest Reyes who was gonna take drill by a rapid storm. And oh boy, that was one heck of a hunch. The very next year, Notti had a sold-out show at the iconic spot for emerging talent, SOB, in New York City. The rapper's fans showed up to sounds of Brazil to listen to a voice from Harlem who barely had any propensity to hold back from the truth of vengeance and rivalry that was common in Notti's native town. What really helped the rapper's case was the multiple collaborations he had with established and emerging New York City names. He joined the crew 900, which is a collective of young rappers from NYC. It wasn't difficult to take Notti seriously. At a very young age, he was regularly hitting studios with his brothers to improve his flow and style, and well, his efforts worked like a charm. The rapper gained undeniable attraction and notoriety after he worked on his debut mixtape, Don't Start No Stuff. The mixtape was released in March 2022 and became the rapper's signature mark on the drill scene in the country. Don't Start No Stuff was charting on iTunes in the hip-hop category in no time, and it felt like the young boy from Harlem had finally made it. The rapper's commercial appeal continued when he was co-signed by 50 Cent. The veteran actor and rapper couldn't believe the talent that such a young mind possessed. Even though the mixtape was Notti's official entry into the drill scene, he didn't exactly think about censoring his pen. From the poverty that plagues Harlem to the clear-cut diss at the rival gangs, Notti Osama considerably riled up his ops or enemies into picking up their pens too. It's just unfortunate that some rival gang associates and rappers chose to pick their guns too. Regardless, Don't Start No Stuff was transformative. Tracks like Subway Shooter would gain notoriety after Notti's passing. But even then, the teenager created an irrefutable mark for himself in the world of drill. Yet it was the track Dead Ops that really put Notti and DD on the map. The collective diss dragged their opponents through the mud. No wonder the song blew up. However, even after his popularity, Notti didn't lose his boyish charm. In fact, he was known to be very camera shy. During an informal interview with his friends, he was asked, "We'll tell you everything about him." Notti's notorious affiliations. Here's the catch, though. Notti's musical emergence and presence weren't non-violent by any means. Just like his fellow rappers from Harlem, it was difficult for teenagers to rap and make music outside of the gang allegiance. Sources reveal that the young rapper was a willing and complicit associate of the original Youngings gang, which is commonly referred to as OY in the streets of New York. While OY isn't the most violent and organized gang in the city, it has a stable rap scene that is known for gunfights and stabbing their musical rivals and so on. It's true that Notti Osama was born to work in the OY gang. After all, his brothers have been active members of the gang. The family name, Reyes, is associated with violent stabbings and aggression that the gang OY is usually blamed for. And it didn't help that Notti proudly and wholly embraced his OY roots in his rap journey too. In his rap, he frequently boasted about his gang association, which was known to overshadow their rivals in their musical scene and beyond. Even when DD and Notti worked together, the brother duo had to boast about their family gang that was known to regularly and explicitly challenge their rivals. In the track Evil Twins Part 2, Notti dissed his rivals. The overtly explicit lyrics suggested that whoever dissed OY was bound to be dead. It's not shocking that the song is one of the rapper's most popular songs. On Genius alone, Evil Twins Part 2 had more than 100,000 views. Similarly, in the track Aftermath, Notti openly acknowledges that the war is nasty, but doesn't shy away from reiterating his utmost loyal and faithful allegiance to his gang. In his own words, OYOG, till the day that I die. Believe it or not, the rapper was merely 13 years old when he penned down those words. It's also not surprising that Aftermath is one of the handful of mainstream songs popularized by Notti. The short lyrical venture jam-packed with violent notions, including the rapper's familiarity with flipping the chapters for the ops. Notti's career was profoundly short-lived, but he took his sweet time by provoking his enemies, who were largely rivals of the gang he was associated with. It's true that Osama wasn't any different from his brothers and the fellow rivals he had befriended at 900 or OY's hotspots, such as Sugar Hill or Hamilton Heights. The only difference is that gang-related violence would take the life of the 14-year-old who had his career ahead of him. The tragic last hours of Notti Osama. There's no denying that Notti Osama didn't live the life of a typical teenager. However, outside of his tough-as-nails persona, he was simply a 14-year-old who'd wake up early in the morning to attend his classes in a high school located in a Harlem locality. So, it is difficult to grapple with the hard-hitting reality that's unfortunately true for most drill rappers emerging from New York City. Even a rapper as young as Osama was fighting battles of his own. And we don't mean that metaphorically. The name Osama and Reyes came with a lot of baggage. Over the course of years, the family had made several enemies over musical rows and lyrical bars. So of course, Notti wasn't going to step out of the legacy of picking up active, violent, and bloody fights with his rivals. To be fair, his family didn't think of intervening together. At that point in Notti's career, his brother, DD, was about to claim the title of the king of New York streets. But even DD treated his youngest brother like who he was, a child who had found his breakout moment at a transformative age. It wasn't surprising that Notti was picking up fights with rappers of his age too. Of course, his rivals or ops weren't as established or hadn't found their shining moment in hotspots like 900 Crew or SOB. So, it didn't feel very momentous when Notti had infamously picked a feud with a 15-year-old rival, but there was one thing that was as clear as daylight. No one expected the teens to resort to weapons to resolve a feud that allegedly started over some issue related to rap itself. Prior to the deadly incident, Notti's violent ventures were typically tied to rap battles and lyrical shootdowns. Even though his gang, OY, is known to be pretty coveted in the operations, some of its violent members have earned their notoriety on the internet. Yet the 14-year-old rapper had a clean chit. In fact, he was goofier than his siblings and often resorted to TikTok and Instagram to share tidbits from his life that weren't about his music. He would take his fans on a school tour, or he would share the daily happenings of his life. Since he had a considerable fan following on his socials that were eventually taken down, he had tapped into an entirely new audience that was relatively new to drill rap. This is why the world was shocked and confused to find out that a kid growing up right in front of their eyes had passed away after a violent altercation. By all records, it was Notti who had opened the doors of the brutal chase that took his life. And well, even his closest associates didn't see it coming. You see, Notti's day had started out typically. Sure, his friends had noticed the tension in him because allegedly, his enmity with Martinez had increased exponentially. Even then, the 9th day of July 2022 started out typically for the teenager. But before the day could meet its dawn, a young, promising, talented man was dead, and the other was on the run from the New York Police Department. So, what went down? The death of Notti Osama. To this date, we have no information on how Notti's typical summer day had turned into a cat-and-mouse chase with his rival, Martinez. The 15-year-old rapper was also known to take shots at his rivals, and it certainly didn't help that he was associated with the opposing gang that Notti was known to chastise. While the police deliberately remained hush-hush about the escalation to avoid any further clashes in Harlem, it is clear that Notti had acted out in a way to please his gang, OY. It was July the 9th, 2022 when Notti was out with his friend. Rumor has it that the young rapper had encountered his rival in his old hometown, presumably East Harlem. By 2022, Notti had already moved to Yonkers, New York, but he was habitual of visiting the very streets that had kick-started his rap career. The teenager would be in Harlem routinely where he worked alongside other rappers and hung out with his old friends. So, it wasn't out of the norm for Notti to roam around in the streets of Harlem. However, things quickly went south when the rapper's leisure stroll turned into a gang fight. Allegedly, Notti and his friends had encountered Martinez in his hometown, which didn't turn out well for the youngest Rays. And then in the blink of an eye, the teenager was running after Martinez in the hopes of a violent physical altercation. Around 3 p.m., Notti and his associate were seen around a subway station in Manhattan, searching desperately for Martinez. And well, they weren't empty-handed. In the CCTV footage that was obtained by the police, it was visible that Notti was carrying the lower half of a broken broom to get back at Martinez. And when both of the rivals came face to face, their altercation was quick and decisive. While Notti attempted to disarm his rival with a broken piece of wood, Martinez pulled up a knife and slashed his opponent's abdomen. Right after the stabbing, he fled the scene while the young rapper was left bleeding in the subway. He was immediately taken to a hospital nearby, but it was too late. By the time his brothers and fellow OY members arrived at the scene, Martinez had already escaped. Later on, he was taken to the police station by his mother, who claimed that her son was traumatized when Notti ran after him with one purpose: kill him once and for all. In fact, the hospital records from the incident show that Martinez had also suffered puncture wounds when Osama's friend had swung a sharp object at him, but it wasn't enough to tear him down or hold him up, precisely why he was able to escape the scene, while the 14-year-old rapper grappled with a lethal wound. The aftermath. The New York Police Department was quick to take action. They had realized very quickly that Notti's stabbing hadn't happened in a vacuum. The incident itself was tied with the larger outlook of violence that was common in Harlem. And well, Notti's untimely death could have antagonized his gang enough to take the law in their hands. But the other side of the story was equally vulnerable. Martinez was also a 15-year-old rapper who had recently found a breakthrough in the gang scene. He wasn't a full-fledged gang member with operations of his own. Martinez was arrested promptly and was charged with second-degree murder. However, after his mother worked around with prosecutors to highlight her son's motivations, the charge was reduced to first-degree manslaughter. The gathered evidence and the CCTV footage around Manhattan had proven that the 15-year-old rapper had acted in self-defense. All fingers pointed at Notti Osama, who had run after his rival to hurt him physically. It's unclear how Martinez quickly conjured up a knife to destabilize Reyes, but that really didn't matter. This is why Martinez was charged with illegal possession too. The aftermath of Notti's killing was pretty visceral. Social media was in shambles. The rapper's fans and peers outpoured their support and prayers for him. Big names like 50 Cent sent him prayers. Later, it was revealed that before his passing, Notti was working in the studio to release another track. A video from his time in the studio started to make rounds on the internet. However, the tragic passing of Notti Osama was hailed as a gang win for the rivals of OY. This is why the gang's ops didn't wait for the moment of grief to settle down. Soon enough, the song Notti Bop, which satirizes the young rapper's stabbing and his defeat in the fight, was released. The lyrics of the song are callous in nature. The lyrics referencing the loss of a life read, "He got poked one time, stopped breathing, his mans left him, he was on the floor bleeding, I cannot die on a train like Ethan." To make matters worse, the song found utmost popularity on TikTok as influencers attempted to use the track to make a popular dance template out of it. Believe it or not, the cruel incident had gone viral on the internet for all of the wrong reasons. Users even tried to mimic Ethan Reyes' stabbing in front of Buckingham Palace. To be fair, making light of death and parodying a gruesome murder is tragically very common in the drill rap. Even Notti's closest associates are guilty of the macabre crime. However, the fact that Notti was only 14 and had a long way to go didn't help anyone's case. TikTok users didn't understand the context behind the song. Drill rap isn't a mainstream genre of music, and while certain hip-hop circles grieved Osama, a large chunk of people remained unaware of the situation. It was surprising that TikTok users were faking a stabbing over Notti Bop, and the trend continued until TikTok stepped in and started to remove the insensitive videos from the platform. Eventually, content warnings were added to Notti Bop as users became aware of the tragedy that had taken a young, promising life. Yet the trend was out of control. In fact, certain people in the crowd also yelled Notti Bop while DD was performing Letter to Notti, a tribute song the rapper had written right after his brother's death. But of course, TikTok wasn't the only battleground in the situation. While the police didn't report on the incident, it was alleged that a member of the OY gang potentially injured a rival for publicly doing the Notti Bop dance. Fortunately, the violence didn't escalate in the streets of Harlem as Notti's brothers, including DD, chose to channel their emotions and grief in their rap. While talking to Complex, DD expressed his foremost regret for not being there with his brother, who was on the verge of making it big like himself. While talking about their missed future prospects, he said, "If my little brother never died, then we were both going to blow up. I be saying that shit all the time. It just would have taken a little more time. We just would have had to wait until the world see our faces, and then everyone would see us." Surprisingly, after Notti's passing, DD felt the urge to call himself an artist rather than a drill rapper. His brother's death got him a lot of fame, but the 17-year-old didn't care about it much. Talking about the experience, he said, "Indeed, Notti's loss is tremendously tragic. At the same time, it reminds us of the horrors of drill rap where art meets horrifying violence." That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, click on the boxes playing on your screen to watch similar content.